Yuki Tsunoda replaced Liam Lawson and will now drive for Red Bull. This decision came as a shock to many, especially considering how quickly it happened. Just days ago, Lawson was seen as a promising young driver, but after failing to score points in his first two races, the Red Bull management made a swift call. But does that mean Lawson's F1 dreams are over? Well, let's find out. The decision to replace Lawson was made after a critical board meeting in Dubai. Key figures like Oliver Mintzlaff, Christian Horner, and Helmut Marko discussed Red Bull's driver situation. The reality was simple. Lawson's results were not strong enough, and the team needed a second driver who could consistently bring in points. Red Bull is aiming for the Constructors' Championship, and having a driver struggle at the back of the grid was not an option. What made this situation worse was how the news broke. That meant Lawson likely found out about his demotion through the media, which is a terrible way for a young driver to receive such devastating news. It raised questions about how Red Bull handles its drivers, as this is not the first time something like this has happened. One of the biggest reasons Tsunoda got this promotion is Honda's influence. Honda has been supporting Tsunoda since his junior career, and they already pay around 10 million euros per year to have him in the Racing Bulls team. Last year, Honda reportedly offered another 10 million euros if Red Bull would promote him to the senior team, but Red Bull declined at the time. But when Lawson's performances didn't meet expectations, Red Bull returned to Honda and asked if they would still be willing to pay for Tsunoda's promotion. The answer was yes, and it's believed that Honda may have offered an additional 10 million euros, making the total financial benefit too good for Red Bull to ignore. The timing of this move is also significant. The Japanese Grand Prix is just around the corner, and Honda saw this as a perfect opportunity for massive publicity. The week before the race, there is a big Red Bull show run in Tokyo, where all four Red Bull affiliated drivers will appear together for the first time. This means Tsunoda will be in Red Bull's dark blue race suit, while Lawson will return to Racing Bull's white colors. The visual impact will be huge for Japanese fans and media, creating a wave of excitement for the home race. For Lawson, this entire situation must feel like a nightmare. He was given a chance, but it was taken away after just 2 races. The pressure on him was enormous, and while he showed flashes of promise, the reality is that Red Bull demands immediate results. Some believe that, deep down, Lawson might feel relieved. Driving for Red Bull comes with an intense level of scrutiny, and struggling at the back of the field only makes things worse. Now, he will return to Racing Bulls, where expectations will be lower, and he might get a chance to rebuild his confidence. Interestingly, this change might not be as simple as it seems. The second Red Bull car, the one Tsunoda will now drive, has been notoriously difficult to handle. Even experienced drivers like Sergio Perez have struggled with it, and Max Verstappen is the only one who seems to be able to extract its full potential. If Tsunoda faces similar struggles, it could create even more problems for Red Bull. Now, Red Bull and Racing Bulls have to manage a chaotic transition. There are sponsorship materials, promotional campaigns, and even official documents that need to be changed. Everything from posters to team merchandise will have to be updated in record time. The Japanese Grand Prix program, which likely had Lawson listed as a Red Bull driver, might not be printed in time to reflect the change. One of the most awkward moments will come when Lawson arrives in the paddock for the Japanese Grand Prix. Just a few days ago, he was Red Bull's future star, but now he will walk in as a demoted driver. Cameras will capture every expression, every reaction, and it will be a tough situation for him to face. Tsunoda, on the other hand, will be stepping into the biggest moment of his career. For him, this is a massive opportunity, and he will want to prove that he deserves the seat. This whole scenario is eerily similar to what happened with Daniel Ricciardo in Singapore last year. Ricciardo was injured, and Lawson was brought in as a replacement. He did well enough to earn praise, but now he finds himself pushed aside in a way that feels ruthless. Red Bull has a history of making harsh decisions, and this is just another example of how quickly things can change in Formula One. One of the biggest talking points is the decision to replace a driver after just 2 races. That is an incredibly short amount of time for any driver to prove themselves. In most cases, teams give a driver a longer run before deciding whether they are the right fit. But in this case, it seems like the team was quick to conclude that the driver was not capable of handling the car. And this raises concerns about whether the second Red Bull car is just too difficult to drive. Another factor to consider is that Yuki Tsunoda has not had much testing time in the Red Bull car. If he also struggles, then it could confirm that the car itself is the real problem. The Japanese Grand Prix will be an important race because it will show if Yuki can handle the car better than the previous driver. If he performs well, the team's decision will seem justified. But if he struggles, it will raise more questions about whether the second Red Bull car is too unpredictable. Sergio Perez might also feel relieved. He has been criticized for his performances. If multiple drivers struggle with the second Red Bull car, it suggests that it is much harder to drive than the first car, which is designed around Max Verstappen's driving style. While all of this is happening, the Red Bull team is also dealing with public relations challenges. When big stories like this break in the media, teams usually prefer to have some control over how they are presented. In this case, it seems like Red Bull was caught off guard by the news. Sometimes journalists reach out to teams before publishing a major story to get their response. If Red Bull had been given that opportunity, they might have tried to delay the story or manage the situation differently. But once the news is out, teams have to decide how to handle the journalists involved. Some teams might try to punish a journalist by limiting their access to information. But in Formula One, PR teams usually try to maintain relationships with the media, even when they don't like what is being reported. The situation may remind you of the controversy involving Red Bull team principal Christian Horner and his assistant, which was reported by a journalist from the Dutch newspaper De Telegraaf. Red Bull was unhappy about the story, and they couldn't completely shut out the journalist. The same thing might happen in this case. Red Bull might not like how the news broke, but they will still have to work with the media going forward. Now the situation shifts to the upcoming Japanese Grand Prix. The driver swap between Yuki Tsunoda and Liam Lawson is unusual, especially so early in the season. Driver changes usually happen later in the year when teams have more data to evaluate performance. But in this case, Red Bull has made a quick decision, and now all eyes are on Yuki to see if he can deliver. Liam Lawson was seen at the airport heading back to the UK with his suitcases, looking like a young driver whose dreams had been put on hold. It must have been a difficult moment for him. He had worked hard for this opportunity, and now he finds himself out of a race seat after just a couple of events. He might be telling himself that he'll get another chance in the future, but in Formula One, nothing is guaranteed. Despite the tough situation, Liam remains a positive character. Many people in the paddock respect him, and he has shown that he has the talent to compete at this level. On the other hand, Yuki Tsunoda now has a huge opportunity. He has been part of the Red Bull program for years, but this is his biggest chance yet. His new manager Diego may have played a role in securing this seat for him. If Yuki performs well, it'll justify the team's decision to put him in the car. The biggest question now is whether Yuki Tsunoda can make the most of this opportunity. If he delivers strong performances, it will confirm that Red Bull made the right call. But if he struggles, it will add to the theory that the second Red Bull car is too difficult to handle. And that's all we have for today's episode. Don't forget to give this video a like, smash the subscribe button, and also ring the notification bell for more upcoming uploads.